knowledge is always from here to there, here, in a dialectical progression of mutual illumination.
It was the first time of me understanding what colonialism is.
Nigeria.
It was inspirational, reclaiming who we are.
Knowledge.
He's been my source of guidance throughout my journey as a international black identity, you know. So yeah, I've been really grateful for this whole experience, yeah.
Decolonization, first and foremost, is the act of removing colonization from our system, from our mental system, from our every kind of system, from our institutions, from our education, the way we were taught, you know, using colonial methods.
Decolonizing our minds is like what Esra Stanford Cossé talks about with reparations. It's on all the levels, but it has to first start with ourselves.
In 2019, we invited the Racial Justice Network to Nairobi to attend a conference on quality education. And our partners from the UK spoke in that conference, out of which an idea of decolonizing education was born. And following the 2019 conference, we held in 2020 January a conference on decolonizing education at the University of Nairobi in the Faculty of Education.
It's always good that when we can have a coming together of African people to talk about decolonization in a Pan-African way, in ways that connect different aspects of Africa and the diaspora.
The whole concept, I actually came to learn about it and decided to do something about it while attending a Racial Justice Network meeting one time in the UK. And from the conversation that was taking place, I realized the things we were talking about, they refer to them here as racism, but back at home, what they were going through was what we had gone through earlier, but changed into something else, where we were left believing in the way we were taught, we are less, we are inferior, and we treat the whites differently, which to me was neocolonialism that is as bad as racism. Worse, in fact, because it is us who are doing it to ourselves from our mind. And when I was given an opportunity to talk, I suggested to them they need to bring the movement outside, especially in Africa, so that they make us know. And they also get to know that colonization developed to neocolonialism, and we need to decolonize because we are being racist to ourselves.
We welcome, ancestors, your presence and inspiration as we So it's heartening to see this, and it's going to be baby steps because our minds are colonized, and so we have to slowly break that down, yeah, to be able to speak to ourselves honestly, to be critical of, you know, what we're experiencing, yeah, and our thoughts and our ideas that we have. And the goodness of being in the presence of an elder who has been thinking about these things and refining his thoughts over a long time is that, yeah, it operates in a way to help ground us and to pick out the rubbish from the good stuff.
This symposium was a bringing together of that work that has been going on in Kenya with Nairobi University academics who've continued to support projects that we have or exist within the Racial Justice Network, and with Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who's like the king or the don or the OG of decolonizing our minds.
And one of them was the Kenyan delegates felt like we were coming to trace the stone that the Masons rejected is actually the cornerstone on matters decolonization.
Day one of the symposium was the day we went to University of Leeds. This was homecoming for Mwalimu. Leeds is the place where he says the awakening happened. So wanting to start at that base was important, regardless of the challenges we were facing, at being able to ground ourselves in Leeds and at the university particularly. But to be there and the reception we received, because this we were able to do this with the students and grassroots movements, Prela and RGN and grassroots and the students at the university. The reception he received, to the banners, to walking through with one of our comrades also who delivers or who does Black History Walks at the University of Leeds, to be able to do that and a guided tour.
It's very important to highlight that there were people in Leeds who gave African peoples a platform to express their own humanity.
We wanted to physically memorialize Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o at Leeds. I studied at Leeds, I'm a Leeds alumni, and I was disappointed that there were people there who did not know, academics who are delivering in departments that should know and his work, who had no idea that Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o was there. So the question about wanting a physical memorialization of Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o it's a campaign I started at least 3-4 years ago. And that was one of the things we wanted to achieve. A second was, as I said, to kind of bring it back to base, bring the decolonizing conversation back to base. And a third one, and this is also important, is this, which I mentioned, was a partnership building with the Global South, because there's this siloing that continues of not just institutions and academics with resources, without resources, with knowledge, without, or considered without knowledge, or extraction or exploitation that continues. But we wanted to build partnerships because I've seen the benefit of partnerships as an organization, as a racial justice network. So that was one of the things that we were hoping to achieve as well with the rest of the academics that were coming, academics and scholars, academics and activists that are coming from the Global South. And I feel we've been able to achieve this, not with all 3 institutions, but I feel like we've been able to achieve a lot of what we set out to do. There's a campaign that started around where is Ngugi, so to have that as the question, the big question we're posing, to having a declaration where statements were read about what people think about these elders because of the need for intergenerational work, but also departments or institutions or organizations who've built on the back of his work on decolonizing, the declaration of wanting to ensure that he's there, but reclaiming land, reclaiming space at the University of Leeds was particularly important, and that's what we were able to achieve, which is why I say we have got Ngugi wa Thiong'o Freedom Square at Leeds University, and encouraging anybody who wants to know where that is to go and find out, or maybe check out our social media. Saturday we wanted a Kikuyu language session, because all of the sessions and all of everything that we're doing is still in English, and considering how much Mwalimu has been advocating for our languages and our mother tongues, I wanted to organize a space that was specifically for Kikuyu speakers. It didn't matter if people are from a different background, as long as they could understand and speak in, and we did that in Leeds, and that was really good as well. And I think the exclamation was, obviously when he was here in 1965 to 1968, there was very few people, there was very few Africans. He was saying there was 2 of them, And now to see a thriving Kikuyu community, a Kikuyu community that continues speaking the language and know his work and know his worth as well, or value, was very special. The title of a lot of what we were doing was Gokogoira, which is an African or Kikuyu tradition of celebrating elders or people in our community. They don't even have to be elders.
You're here on behalf of all those who did not make it. It was in Sheffield that we made Ngugi the king of Sheffield. You know, he's been joking about it and saying, now I'm the king of Sheffield. But you see what happened is that we had an event which we called Gokongoira, honoring Ngugi. And I was honored to be the person leading this Gokongoira. But the more we went on with the ceremony, the more I realized how serious it is. Yes, thank you, Maito. And the man will face the mountain. Wegai Vito Wakirenyaga Netuoka Bere Aku, Twinyihetie, Tuigosokeria Gado, Nudo. I hadn't planned the words like this is what it's going to be, but the seriousness that it was taken by the people who were present from all over Africa and the diaspora at the Utopia Theatre. It is a moment that I will cherish forever. And that is where, on the script that I did not have, I declared Ngugi to be the coronated king, emperor of literature.
The Friday after, we were running workshops at Sheffield University. Again, this was another space that was led by Alex, who runs one of the organizations there, Equity and Inclusion Center. Chiwe was the person who led on the Utopia Theatre, and Chiwe Chiana.
Honoring one elder, we're honoring all our elders, and it's such a
In Manchester, we walked to a Pan-African site where the 1945 conference was held, and there the idea was to really realize and acknowledge what happened back then and where we are now. And then we went to the Windrush Centre in Moorside, where we held a panel or an evening with different speakers, and with that we were talking about Pan-Africanism and grassroots movements and resistance.
Ghana today, when you go there to Ghana, our Ghana, which we knew, Kwame Nkrumah, is celebrating the one who overthrew him, the one who was a British soldier of policeman, right? That's normalized abnormality.
Several decades before decolonization became a core plank of an anti-racist platform in education and beyond, he wrote Decolonizing the Mind, The Politics of Language in African Literature.
Thursday night, Mwalimu covered the topic on normalized abnormalities in the world today, and he went into big examples that we kind of don't even consider abnormal anymore, but he kind of went into that. And we wanted to move from just analyzing the problem to, okay, what are the solutions? What are people doing? What do we foresee? What is the futurity?
Because they had read my book, Decolonizing, they did not know anything about my other books.
Best way to explain it is, we got to stop this nonsense. We got to stop this abnormality. No way out until we say no to normalized abnormality.
Talks about the knowledge as from here to there and back, right?
And there's a way he's explaining, especially about women, our sisters, our mothers, who have boxed themselves in between colonialism and patriarchy, you know, through their names. Such that if you're called Margaret Akinyi Onyango, for example, then you call yourself Margaret A. Onyango. And what Ngugi is saying is that that woman has now boxed herself through her name between patriarchy and colonialism, because you start with a colonial name and then you put your name as a dot, and then at the end there is patriarchy. So, you know, he teaches very simply, just to make us see ourselves.
Highlight for me was the fact that he married in the importance of representing your language, regardless of what it is. He eliminated the hierarchies and the colonized way that language is being dominated between each cultures.
Professor Ngugi talked about like stories of every day, and that's really enlightening for us to see how colonialism is present in our daily lives.
Myself as a Zimbabwean woman living in the United Kingdom, you are forced to speak English. Wherever you go, you are always speaking English. But even in your house, you don't stop speaking English. But today we have been reminded who we are, how important our languages are. Yes, it's good to speak English, but it is equally important to speak my mother tongue, which is Shona. Moroi Makadi Tinotend.
It was the first time of me understanding what colonialism is. So my heart jumped today. And what I'm taking away from now is to encourage my own children to speak our own language. English outside of the door. In my house, Luganda, from now on.
On Friday morning, it was powerful session as well, with people talking about land rights. And it was interesting because one of the speakers gave the example following on from the normalized abnormalities of colonizers getting independence in places like Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand.
To emphasize what was going on in Europe that made that possible. And if we don't understand that outside of Europe, all our strategies will be incomplete, because we have to recognize that our restoration cannot be at the expense of other people. We have to ensure that our repair brings about or catalyzes the repair processes of other members of the human family.
From, what is the logo of the USAID? The Japanese say from the people of Japan, but the USAID say from the American people. So a child is class 1 is reading a book, but it is written from the American people. So all this, they will not think about the indigenous knowledge in our own country.
We realized that language is central to the colonization of curriculum, and as Professor Ngugi says, if you want a people to forget who they are, what you do is to disconnect them linguistically from their culture, and that is what neocolonialism did. And you can see even up to now we implement neocolonialism principles in our curriculum to date.
Came back to Leeds because it's where we started, but also where we wanted to complete this tour. And it was just, again, a conversation with Mwalimu about history, and asking him why he travelled, what Leeds meant to him, which he got into. A grassy area there. Well, I also shared a little bit of my my thesis on the pillars of domination, as I've kind of come to call them, or pillars of oppression that were installed back during pre-colonial days that continue to suppress communities till now.
I really, if I had energy and time, I like to translate into Gikuyu.
I'm from a place where we share a lot of these stories that he's put down into paper for the rest of the world, where we can be able to share our, I guess, historical trauma in a way, and it's been quite releasing to be able to get indirect answers from him through the lecture as to how I can be able to formalize my identity in a, I guess, third-party aspect of a first world country coming from there. So it has been very hitting.
We know that he already has an honorary degree from this institution, and there are numerous other ways that we can explore in terms of creating something that outlives them, outlives us, and it remains as a constant reminder that he was here, the work, or he is here now, and he was here whenever we have transcended to the next, wherever it is that we go after this time-space reality. So there is a need to create something for future generations.
I just love all of his work. I love reading it. I'm continually going back to passages and just sort of reading through them. Just if some thoughts come up, then he'll be one of the main people. It's either him or Frantz Fanon that I turn to, just to sort of supplement any thoughts that I'm having. And just, yeah, I've read him a lot. I love him. He's great. It's so exciting.
Knowledge is always from here to there to here, in a dialectical progression of mutual illumination.
Ngugi wa Thiong'o is not the kind of person who does things to be paid or to be celebrated. He doesn't do things for awards. He doesn't write so that he gets awarded. Ngugi wa Thiong'o writes to award people's brains by breaking the yokes on the chains that entangle our brains, by reading him. And his biggest or happiest moments are where you are discussing the works that he has done. And he's continued writing. He's towards his, I think, almost 50th book. He keeps writing all the time. He keeps bubbling with ideas. And I think the more he gets old, the older he gets, the wiser he becomes. So I would ask especially my Kenyan people, my African people, read Ngugi. Just, try him out and you'll see how he's going to change your life. He's going to change your name. He's going to change your English name. He's going to change your colonial name. He's going to change your slave name. He's going to change your slave mentality. And once you're freed from that, oh my God, ni kama kuokoka. Yeah.
Garvey says that you do not give your enemy your children to teach. That doesn't make sense. That's definitely an abnormality, right? But in order for us to feel that our teaching of our own is valid, we have to respect the knowledge, the basic knowledge. And that's going to have to come about by deepening our knowledge of ourselves, our self-knowledge in different ways.
There will be reflections, personal reflections, but also as an organization. But there's been also a lot of contact from people, because during all of these events we've been able to distribute some of our flyers, and people are learning about the Racial Justice Network, but also wanted to get involved. I feel there's been also other suggestions about possible meetings to just continue this work around decolonizing. I've met new individuals who are doing great work, and I just think, yeah, it'd be good to have further and future conversations. His depth and this I really I hold dear. He's 85 years old and his mind is just sharp as God knows what, but the impact of his words, the passion that he has, but more than anything, the humility that he has, because for somebody who's done this work and has, as you said, 43 books, has won so many awards, including the Nobel Prize of Our Hearts, he continues to kind of do the work. He's not stopped, and he does it with such humility, and that's the thing I'm really taking away. There's been other conversations that we have had between us, the few of us who are kind of like around him and or have been around each other. And some of the things that he says is like, because I've questioned where he learns from, because we learn from people like him. Where does he learn from? And he says there's no point, there's never a point where you think you've learnt enough. Even these interactions that we are having, he says even a child can teach you something. So these interactions we are having is almost, I don't know what the term is, of knives sharpening each other. And that's one of the things I'm taking away, but I know I'll be reflecting for a while to come.
We had our education before, our African education, our way of life, but it was eroded by colonialism. So the task ahead of us right now is to decolonize. And that is where now we're going around with the Racial Justice Network, the RJN, who I connected with a few years ago. They are based here in the UK, but we are spreading out all over Africa, I would say. Our mission is to go talking about decolonization so that our people get to understand that actually we are still very colonized, our way of looking at life. And that is where we want to reverse and shift the gears so that we get back to where we were supposed to be from the word go.
Normalized abnormalities.
We're gonna sing down there in Kenya.
Normalized abnormalities.
We're gonna sing against it in Ghana.
Normalized abnormalities.
We're gonna sing down in Jamaica now.
Normalized abnormalities.
We're gonna sing against it in Barbados.
Normalized abnormalities.